Well, good afternoon and happy Friday, everybody. My name is Steve Givens. I am the executive director of the Bridges Foundation in St. Louis. We are an organization that offers and provides the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola in everyday life. And we do this over about a 9-month period of time, beginning in September, which means we're currently in the process of recruiting people for next year's retreat, which begins right around the first week in September. If you're interested in that and you're coming upon this broadcast for the first time, check out our website, which is bridgesfoundation.org, or reach out to me. You can do that multiple ways from the website. So today we're having another one of we call Bridges Conversations. We do this with members of our community, whether they are former retreatants, our prayer companions, or sometimes people who are a little more experts on different aspects of the spiritual exercises. Today we are talking with Dan Coughlin, and Dan is about as new to the Bridges community as anyone, because he just finished his retreat in May. And so I asked him, and in the next couple episodes in August and September, I'm inviting some recent retreatants back to talk about their experience. So let me tell you just a little bit about Dan before we get started and before he tells you a little bit more about himself. But Dan is a man of many talents and a wide background. But back in 1998, he founded a company called the Coughlin Company, which is a firm focused on educating both non-profit and for-profit executives to consistently deliver excellence among their teams. So he is a coach, and we'll talk a little bit more about his background to that. But he's an executive coach, but in his past, he's been a teacher, he's been a coach, and his approach to all this work is very down to earth and friendly and encouraging. Open-minded and collaborative. He brings a lot to his clients. And today we're going to talk, among other things, a little bit about how that work that he's already doing melds and fits together with his experience of the spiritual exercises. So after all that, good afternoon, Dan. How are you?
Good, Steve. How are you?
Good. Excellent. Well, listen, let's begin by just starting at the very beginning. That they say that's always a good place to begin. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, your education, your career path, and let that lead into kind of how and when you came to decide to experience the spiritual exercises with Bridges.
Well, I grew up Catholic, so I went to a Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic college. Then I coached. I was the head soccer coach at a Catholic university, and then I taught math at 2 different Catholic high schools. So I did as much as you could. And then my wife, I met my wife in 1995, Barb, and her father was a Protestant minister. Both of her grandfathers were Protestant ministers, and 4 of her uncles were Protestant ministers. So I decided to become Protestant in 1996 so we could raise our kids and go to the same church together. And I taught confirmation class to the 8th graders for 16 years at that Protestant church. And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. It was just amazing. Every year, the kids were so great. And I took a year off last year and I really missed it. So this year I'm going to teach an 8-month adult confirmation class at my church. We'll see if what we did with the 8th graders can be effective with adults. My degree was in mechanical engineering. I went to Notre Dame, but then I went straight into teaching and coaching. I was a college head soccer coach for 5 years. I taught high school math for 8 years. And then 25 years ago, I left the academic world and started my own company where I teach seminars on leadership and teamwork and do executive coaching work. That's a little bit about my background.
Good. Well, tell me a little bit about how you came to decide and to enter into the experience of the spiritual exercises last year. So, because you were like one of the very first people to sign up for last year's retreat. We don't start till, September. And I think the prior January, you were ready to go. So Why did that happen? Why was this a good time, you think?
Well, I'm really the product of a Jesuit education. So I went to St. Louis University High School. I learned some of the Jesuit phrases. I learned about be a man for others, AMDG, which means for the greater glory of God. We used to actually write that on our test papers, AMDG, because we were supposed to be trying to do our work, our best work for the greater glory of God. The word discernment has been a big, important word in my life ever since then. And then I can remember go forth and set the world on fire. Sometimes I didn't realize that that was a Jesuit phrase. I can picture we had a junior ring dance, and the banner at the junior ring dance said, go forth and set the world on fire. So it's always been a part of me ever since 1977 when I started at St. Louis U High. Then I went back to St. Louis U High as a teacher for 8 years. And in 1997, a Jesuit agreed to meet with faculty members and go over the spiritual exercises with us. He met with us one-on-one. So we would talk for about 40 minutes. He gave us a worksheet to do the readings ahead of time, and then we would meet. He was terrific, but for some reason, the ideas didn't stick with me as much as I had hoped they would. Then in January of 2021, I was in a Bible study group, and someone said they had been through the spiritual exercises. And I said, you mean these spiritual exercises? And they said, yes, that's available. I'm like, where? And then they gave me the website, bridgesfoundation.org. So there's an application and all that. So I filled it out right away. I sent it over to you. It was great. So that's really how I found out about it a second time. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but it's been an absolutely wonderful experience.
Yeah. So tell us about your own experience of in the past year with Bridges. What are your kind of 2 or 3 great takeaways from that experience? What are you taking out of that experience and bringing and keeping in your life? And how did that all flow for you?
Well, I was very geared to it. So we started in September. I met with Shin and Sharon Tan in August, and they recommended some additional books if I had time to read them, and I read them all. So I was totally geared to it. I think I read, in addition to the spiritual exercises, I think I read about 10 additional books. I was so hyped up for it. Excuse me, the takeaways are really in 2 buckets. There's little takeaways and there's big takeaways. So a couple of my little takeaways was Father Mark McKenzie was my first prayer companion before he got ill. And he asked me to imagine, he asked me to use my imagination. So I said, it's kind of like I imagine Jesus is holding a rope and he's pulling on one end of the rope and I'm on the other end of the rope in quicksand. And the quicksand was sin, selfishness, immediate gratification. And so I would use, whenever I was tempted or thinking about falling into these old traps of immediate gratification, I would visualize Jesus pulling on that rope and pulling me out of it. And so that was tremendously helpful. There is a phrase, I have the book over here or downstairs somewhere, but I can't remember the name of the book right now, but I read it from an additional book to the course, this phrase, daily divine opus. And the daily divine opus is daily work with God on my soul. And as soon as I read that, I loved that. So that was another one of those little tidbits that we picked up. So we would meet 30 minutes a week for a lecture. We had a 30-minute a week small group discussion, and then we had a 1 hour a week with our prayer companion. So every single one of these, I filled up 2 manila folders. I filled up a journal. There's so many ideas, but the big ones for me, the biggest ones for me, the daily examine. The daily examine is where you work with your prayer companion and you develop a set of ideas. What do you want to surrender or stop doing? What do you want to start doing? And what do you want to keep doing? And that's been life-changing. I read it over every day. I actually don't read it anymore. I have it in my head, but I go through it every day. I have 5 in each category. 5 things to surrender, which are all about immediate gratification. 5 things to keep going that I've been doing, and then 5 additional ideas I want to incorporate more into my life. So that's one. The second biggest one was the Susape, which you actually introduced to me, and you became my prayer companion. And the Susape is all about God gave us free will, and we are intentionally turning the free will back to God. So at the end of the course, we got this little prayer, and it was so powerful. Take, Lord, this is from St. Ignatius. Take, Lord, receive all my liberty, my memory, understanding, and my entire will, all that I have and possess. You have given all to me. To you, O Lord, I return it. All is yours now. Dispose of it wholly according to your will. Give me only your love and your grace, for this is enough for me. So I probably read this little prayer 3 or 4 times a week. Keep trying to remind myself not to subconsciously fall into immediate gratification, but to let God guide me. So I try to pray and meet with the divine creator, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus a couple times a week. And then Father Mark McKenzie encouraged me to spend time praying with Mary. And so I do that as well. The last big idea that I got out of it was the soul set. Denny Klosterman was he was a prayer companion, and he was in my small group weekly. And one week he said, you know, rather than looking at things from my mindset, I look at them from my soul set. And he just said it. He just made it up right there. And I stopped the class and I said, wow, Denny, that was super powerful. So that's what I try to do. I try to look at life from my soul set now rather than my mindset.
Nice. You mentioned obviously that you were born and raised Catholic, and that and you worship as a Protestant and have for a number of years. And the Bridges retreat, is certainly it certainly comes out of the Catholic and the Jesuit tradition, but it certainly is an experience that is open, and that we're very cast a wide net in inviting anyone, any Christian, to enter into this with us. And you just mentioned in your conversation there that Father Mark asked you to pray to Mary, and for people who aren't Catholic, that can be kind of a foreign idea. But can you just talk a little bit about not necessarily pray to Mary, but talk to Mary, which same thing, I guess, but as part of your prayer of talking to God, talking to Jesus, talking to Mary. But could you talk about that? But also talk just what would you say to a non-Catholic person who's kind of thinking about doing this, but wondering if they're gonna how's it gonna fit for them, if that makes sense.
I never once in the whole 9 months, I never one time felt that any of the conversations were geared towards Catholics and that the Protestants should be just left out. I never ever felt that way. Every exercise, every reading, every discussion, every meditation, in my opinion, had just as much validity and application for a Protestant as a Catholic. So that was never an issue at all. I would say, it is definitely geared towards Christians because every assigned reading is from the New Testament, except for the additional readings that are not in the Bible. So, yeah, I would say for sure Christians, but definitely not just for Catholics. As a matter of fact, in my online group and in my small group, well, Sharon and Shinshin, who ran the online program, were both Protestants. So that should not be keep anybody out of the program, because it's really about spiritual growth. And then the other part you asked about was how do I pray to Mary? Well, I never once thought of Mary as God. I think of God as the divine creator, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus. But Mary, excuse me, talking to Mary added another dimension, a female dimension, a motherly dimension, a nurturing dimension. But in one of my most recent prayers with Mary, she said to me, I'm hurting. I am really in pain. These are children of God, and they're killing each other in wars and in shootings. And she said it really, really devastates her. And I could see that totally. Here she is. All she's trying to do is teach the kingdom of kindness, the kingdom of love, compassion. And yet she is seeing all this brutal, almost every day, these brutal attacks on each other. So it's hard on her. She's not, I used to always pray to Mary to be there for me. What I'm realizing more and more is we need to pray or talk with or be there for them, for Mary, for the divine creator, for the Holy Spirit, for Jesus. It's not just a one-way street.
Thank you for that. We do have a few viewers today. So if any of you have a question for Dan or for me about something that Dan has said or about the Bridges program, feel free to just leave a comment right there on the Facebook comment section. I will see that, and we can get to those a little bit later. So think about that. If you have a question, we're glad you're with us today. So Dan, as I mentioned earlier, the work that you do now is as an executive coach, which means you're working with corporate and nonprofit executives to help them become better leaders, to help them build stronger teams. Was there anything in what you experienced in the spiritual exercises in the Bridges retreat that makes its way into that world, do you think? Are there some takeaways from that you're going to be able to use in your work with individuals who are just trying to be better leaders and trying to be better executives?
It's kind of ironic, not just because of the spiritual exercises, although that did provide a lot more meat and context. But about 15, 20 years ago, I did a presentation at my church called The Intersection of Business and Christianity. I said to the group, I never mention God, Jesus Christ, or the Holy Spirit when I'm coaching an executive. And I don't mention Christianity, and I don't mention spirituality. But a whole lot of what I'm trying to get across is really Christian-based, spirituality-based, Jesuit-based. So I don't use the verbiage, but as long as I can remember, really, I don't have a degree in executive coaching. I never took a course. I don't have a license. Excuse me. So really, what I bring to the party is me, and a big part of me is all the development in spirituality. The Daily Examine is a great practical tool, no matter what. Even if you don't look at it from a spiritual perspective, I do, because I came up with my 15 things through prayer and writing it down and rewriting it and rewriting it. But you don't necessarily have to make it a spiritual thing.
The Examine, I think what you're getting at, it's an awareness tool, right? It's a time to stop and to pay attention and say, what happened to me today? Where did God show up? What did I do what was I doing when I felt being drawn closer to God? And were there some things I was doing that were kind of drawing me away? And as you say, even if God's not in that formula for you, you could easily replace those words with, when was I my best self? Right? When was I a good leader? When was I a good executive? When did I feel in the moment? And so it's kind of akin to mindfulness and gratitude and some of these kind of buzzwords today, almost in the organizational world. Is that right? Did I interpret that right? I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the big word to me is surrender. So what do I need to surrender? Sometimes I think of it like a military or a military situation, or two people have guns and they're fighting it out. And sometimes we just got to put the gun down and surrender it. So for me, like immediate gratification of eating, immediate gratification of judging other people negatively and criticizing them, the immediate gratification of reacting in an intense, angry, sarcastic, arrogant way. Those are all things that I just want to surrender. Say, here you go. I don't want them anymore. You can have them. Now, it's been probably 8 months of me going over this every day, because the way the program is set up, you have preparation days, and then you have 4 sections. Each one's called a week, even though they're really, like, the first week is really 5 weeks. But so it's probably been 8 or 9 months since we went through the daily examine and the examination of conscience. But gosh, that is powerful stuff.
So Dan, you mentioned to me that you're, I guess, you've already created this, or you're in the midst of creating a new program that you want to be able to offer people called Inner Quest. You want to talk a little bit about what this is? And yeah.
During COVID, I wasn't able to travel anywhere, and neither was anybody else. So I created a thing called the Leadership Development Group Coaching Program that I taught to 60 or 70 people, where we would meet in small, people from all over the United States and Canada, and we would meet in small groups. And then I created an executive development group coaching program. And now I'm creating, this one's going to be a little different than the other ones. So those ones both met 10 times and there was a fee. People paid whatever they wanted to pay. Now I'm creating a program called the Inner Quest, because I realized the leadership development material and the executive development material was good, but there was a missing piece. And the missing piece was this inner journey, the inner quest. So it's called the Inner Quest, an internal journey to excellence. And so we're only going to meet 4 times for 2 hours. There's no fee at all. I'm using a pay it forward approach, where my hope is that people will dive into it, take it seriously, and then go pay it forward and try to help somebody else. But we're going to get into topics like surrendering immediate gratification, embracing virtue, focusing on a higher purpose, contributing back to society in a meaningful way. So this is a secular class. There's not going to be any mention of Christianity or God or the Holy Spirit. But the topics are very, very similar to the topics that St. Ignatius tried to teach. Some people get hung up on the spiritual verbiage. So I'm hoping to help them not to sell more or to be a better leader or any of that, but just to focus on themselves. So I'm really, I'm pretty excited about this course.
Awesome.
It's going to start in September. So if you're interested, you can just go to my website. You can either email me. There's a whole description on the Inner Quest there. It's under programs or group coaching programs. So when you get to the menu tabs, you just go there and go down to the Inner Quest. But if you just email me and you want to talk about it, I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. I'm Dan at theCoughlincompany.com.
There we go. All right. We're getting near the end of time here. Anybody out there got any questions? Now's your chance to do that. While we're doing that, I'll say that our next episode is scheduled about a month from now on Friday, August 5th at noon. And I'm going to be talking with another recent retreatant, a really talented and passionate young woman named Angie Taylor. So Dan knows her. I see him shaking his head. She was a great contributor to our online community this year. Speaking of that, as we do have some information sessions coming up on our program that starts in September. Go to our website and just click on information sessions, and you can see when and where those are. You can just show up and hear more about the program and see if it might be for you. We have 4 locations in St. Louis, one at St. Louis U High, one at St. Matthew the Apostle Parish in North St. Louis, one at Webster Groves Christian Church in Webster Groves, and one at Sacred Heart in Parish in Valley Park. And in addition to that, we have a very vibrant online group. We started this during COVID because we had to, and found out that people really liked it. And, we have people from different parts of the country who join us because of that, or our local people who maybe just don't want to drive, or who are traveling a lot and need that option in their life. So please check that out if you're interested. I do have a comment here. Let's see here. Here's one from our friend Mary. I think I can show this. Let's see. There we go. Mary Hastings. Very interested in Dan's course. I'm currently too distracted in volunteer work and want to centralize on purpose. Would that be a good? Would she be a good candidate for this, you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Purpose is at the very center of the whole thing. I'm going to begin by talking about surrender, immediate gratification, and virtues. But then as you move through the course, this idea of a higher purpose, which is not about deadlines or timelines or numbers. It's about, okay, if you took all that out, what's the higher purpose you're trying to fulfill? So I think this would be something right. Mary sounds like she would be great in this.
Yeah.
I do want to say one more thing, though. Above everything else that I said today, I really do encourage people to really, really consider signing up for the spiritual retreat. It is work. There is a time commitment, but the payoff is incredible. It's not a very expensive program. It's, oh my gosh, it was the best program I've ever taken. A year ago, right now, I was looking at signing up. So if you compare me today to me a year ago, there's a definite difference. I was subconsciously very focused on immediate gratification a year ago, and now I am very consciously focused on trying to follow God's will for me. So it is a super powerful course.
Thank you for that. And we got another comment here from Angela Castro, saying that her retreat was a remarkable experience. So I know Angela is a little under the weather today, I know, because she's not able to join us for a program we're having tomorrow. But glad that you're with us online today. Mary, thank you for showing up and for your comment. Dan, anything else in the last, I'll give you the last word if you'd like it. Anything you want to say?
Yeah. If you don't go to the spiritual exercises, there are very, excuse me, powerful books. Father Mark Thibodeau has some powerful books on this. It's just incredible, though. There are so many powerful insights and books and ideas. There's big takeaways and little takeaways. Angie Taylor, who's going to be on next month, was in my small group. She is absolutely fantastic. So I think you'll get a lot out of hearing Angie's thoughts.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Dan. Thank all of you for joining and listening. This broadcast will be archived both on our Facebook page and on our website. So if you saw it and you want to share it with someone else, there'll be a couple of different ways that you can do that. So I think we are good for now. We're having a retreat tomorrow. Unfortunately, we are full up on that retreat, and we can't accept anyone else. But we're having a one-day retreat tomorrow called the Ignatian Community Retreat. It'll be led by Father Hung Pham, who's a Jesuit and the leader of the province's Office of Ignatian Spirituality. So we're all going to be out at Mercy Center tomorrow, having that experience together. So, Dan, thanks for your time. Thanks you all for listening. And one more comment. What is this? Let's see what it is. Here's someone named Mike Koppel says, thanks, Dan. Might be interested in InnerQuest. He'll email you. Okay, so good. Excellent.
All righty.
All right. Thanks, you all. We'll see you next time. Bye.